In the beginning, there was silence. Not the absence of sound, but a profound, expectant silence that holds its breath before revelation. This is the silence that greeted Muhammad Dib, the young Bedouin shepherd, whose name means Muhammad the Wolf, on that fateful morning in 1947, when he hurled a stone into a cave near the Dead Sea and heard the sound that would echo through eternity, the sharp crack of ancient pottery breaking. What Muhammad could not have known as he peered into that dark cave mouth and saw the glint of earthenware jars was that he was about to unlock not just one mystery, but an entire universe of secrets that had been waiting beneath the stones of Jerusalem for thousands of years. If you use these videos to fall asleep, subscribe so you don't miss any new ones. Leave a comment with your thoughts on the video and any suggestions you have for future ones. The Dead Sea Scrolls were just the beginning, the first thread that, when pulled, would unravel a tapestry of hidden knowledge, ancient wisdom, mystical experiences, and profound mysteries that stretch back to the very dawn of human civilization. Jerusalem is not merely a city. It is a living repository of human dreams, divine encounters, hidden treasures, and secrets so profound that they continue to reshape our understanding of history, spirituality, and the very nature of reality itself. To truly understand Jerusalem's mysteries, we must journey not just through its streets and ancient tunnels, but through the realms of the supernatural, the musical echoes of ancient temple worship, the aromatic secrets of healing herbs, the skilled hands of craftsmen who worked with techniques passed down from Solomon's artisans, and the sacred paths walked by millions of pilgrims across countless centuries. This is the story of a city that defies rational explanation, a place where the laws of physics seem suspended, where ancient melodies still echo in hidden chambers, where the very stones themselves hold memories of encounters between the human and the divine, and where every archaeological discovery opens not just windows into the past, but doorways into dimensions of mystery that we are only beginning to comprehend. The limestone cliffs around Qumran, on that morning in early 1947, looked much as they had for millennia, jagged, forbidding, carved by wind and water, into shapes that seemed almost deliberately mysterious. The landscape itself seemed to whisper of ancient secrets, of caves that had witnessed the rise and fall of empires, the birth and death of religions, the desperate flight of people carrying their most precious treasures to safety. Muhammad Dib was not thinking of history or mystery as he searched for his lost goat. He was a practical young man, concerned with practical matters. Finding his animal before the desert heat made the search impossible. But when that stone left his hand and sailed into the darkness of Cave 1, it set in motion a chain of discoveries that would challenge everything. Scholars thought they knew about ancient Judaism, early Christianity, and the hidden history of Jerusalem itself. The sound that echoed back was not the bleating of a goat, but something far more significant: the crack of pottery that had remained undisturbed for nearly 2,000 years. Inside those jars, wrapped in linen cloths, were scrolls that contained not just biblical texts, but hidden writings that only became visible under infrared light in recent years. When modern scholars finally applied advanced imaging techniques to seemingly blank parchments, ghostly letters appeared like messages from beyond time itself, passages from Deuteronomy and Leviticus that had been invisible to the naked eye for centuries. But the Dead Sea Scrolls were more than just ancient manuscripts. They were a treasure map. The copper scroll, unique among all the Qumran finds, was inscribed on thin sheets of copper rather than parchment, a far more expensive and durable medium that suggests the vital importance of preserving its contents. Unlike the other scrolls, which contained religious texts and community rules, the copper scroll read like something from an adventure novel. A detailed list of 64 locations, where enormous quantities of gold, silver, and sacred objects had been hidden before the destruction of the Second Temple. The quantities described in the copper scroll are almost beyond belief. Tons of precious metals and thousands of sacred vessels. If even a fraction of these treasures still exist and could be found, they would represent one of the greatest archaeological discoveries in human history. But here lies the first great mystery. The locations described in the scroll are identified using landmarks and place names that no longer exist. Centuries of destruction, rebuilding, and urban development have erased the ancient topography of Jerusalem. The treasures might still be there, hidden beneath modern buildings, streets, and infrastructure. But the map has become unreadable. As archaeologists puzzled over the Dead Sea Scrolls and their cryptic treasure maps, another mystery was unfolding in the realm of sound itself. Suzanne Ventura, a French musicologist, had spent decades studying the strange markings that appear throughout the Hebrew Bible, markings that scholars had always assumed were simply grammatical accents designed to aid in pronunciation and emphasis. But Ventura had a different theory. Through countless experiments and a laborious process of verification, she finally realized that these symbols represented something extraordinary. Musical tones, the degrees of a scale, or ornaments of 1 to 3 notes. The accents were, in fact, ancient musical notation, preserved by scribes who no longer understood their true purpose. What this discovery meant was staggering. Hidden within the text of the Hebrew Bible were the actual melodies used in the Temple of Jerusalem of 3,000 years ago. The Levitical choirs that sang in Solomon's temple, the musical worship that accompanied the great sacrifices and festivals, the sacred songs that David himself may have composed. All of this had been preserved, encoded in symbols that looked like simple grammatical marks, but were actually a sophisticated musical notation system. The implications ripple outward like sound waves themselves. When you walk through the Western Wall tunnels today, in the quiet moments between tour groups, some visitors report hearing faint melodies echoing from the ancient stones, sounds that have no apparent source but seem to emanate from the walls themselves. Acoustic engineers studying the tunnels have discovered that the chambers possess extraordinary resonant properties, capable of amplifying and sustaining sound, in ways that suggest they may have been designed as much for musical performance as for any practical purpose. Rabbi Johanna ben Zakkai, one of the great sages of the Talmudic period, once said that certain melodies possessed healing power, that specific combinations of notes could cure ailments of both body and soul. Modern sound therapy researchers are only beginning to understand what the ancient temple musicians may have known intuitively. That sound itself can be a form of medicine, that certain frequencies can promote healing, reduce pain, and even alter consciousness. The kinnor, the 10-stringed lyre associated with King David, was not merely a musical instrument but a tool for connecting the earthly and the divine. Ancient descriptions suggest that master kinnor players could induce prophetic states, communicate with celestial beings, and even, according to some sources, open doorways between dimensions. The biblical account of David playing the kinnor to calm King Saul's troubled spirit may be more than metaphor. It may be a historical record of sound being used as a form of supernatural intervention. Traditional Jewish melodies from the Babylonian community, some of which may trace their origins back to the Temple period, continue to be transmitted through oral tradition. When Yanni Dror discovered an ancient chant for Psalm 104 in an old book of Jewish liturgy, the melody that emerged was unlike anything in modern worship, ancient, haunting, with rhythmic changes that seemed to follow patterns older than language itself. The hymn, when posted online, became a sensation, as listeners around the world reported feeling inexplicably moved by its otherworldly beauty. Beneath the streets of modern Jerusalem lies a complex network of tunnels, chambers, and passages that archaeologists are only beginning to map. But these spaces are more than simply functional. They appear to have been designed with sophisticated understanding of acoustic properties and sound amplification. The 2020 discovery of 3 ancient subterranean chambers carved directly into bedrock near the western wall revealed not just storage spaces, but rooms with carved shelves, door jambs, and mysterious niches that may have held oil lamps, or perhaps instruments for creating specific acoustic effects. The chambers had been sealed beneath a Byzantine mosaic floor for nearly 1,400 years, preserving not just artifacts, but the acoustic properties of spaces that may have been used for sacred sound rituals. Dr. Barak Monekandam Given, the archaeologist who supervised the excavation, noted the unusual nature of the discovery. Most people in ancient Jerusalem lived in stone-built houses. What was the function of this hewn system, just under the street level? Was it a house, a storage unit, something else? The answer may lie in understanding these spaces as acoustic chambers, designed to amplify, focus, or modulate sound for purposes we are only beginning to comprehend. Recent explorations using ground-penetrating radar have revealed that Jerusalem sits atop a honeycomb of underground spaces, far more extensive than previously imagined. Some of these chambers appear to be connected by tunnels that could carry sound across great distances underground. Medieval accounts from the Crusader period describe mysterious voices from beneath the earth, heard in various parts of the Old City, voices that seemed to emanate from the stones themselves and could not be traced to any visible source. The Temple Mount itself may be the acoustic center of this underground network. Islamic traditions speak of heavenly music that can sometimes be heard rising from beneath the dome of the rock, particularly during certain astronomical alignments. Jewish sources describe celestial choirs that sing eternal praise in the space once occupied by the Holy of Holies. Christian pilgrims have reported hearing mysterious choruses during prayer at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, voices that seem to come from within the ancient walls, rather than from any earthly singers. Jerusalem's relationship with the supernatural extends far beyond religious faith, into documented encounters with beings and phenomena that defy rational explanation. The city's unique electromagnetic properties, created by its location at the intersection of several geological fault lines and its elevation 750 meters above sea level, may create conditions conducive to paranormal experiences and interdimensional encounters. Ahmad Nabil, a Palestinian researcher who collects folklore and supernatural stories from Jerusalem's Old City, has documented hundreds of encounters with jinn, supernatural beings rooted in Islamic tradition but acknowledged by residents of all faiths. Unlike Western ghost stories, these accounts describe ongoing relationships between the city's human inhabitants and intelligent, purposeful entities that seem to inhabit parallel dimensions of reality. The Old City of Jerusalem in the 1940s and 50s, and even before, was swamped with magical stories and traditions, Nabil explains. Many people describe jinn that live among the population of the Old City and are well known in the Old City. There are the jinn that perform wudu, prayer ablutions at dawn, jinn that bring warnings, and jinn that offer consolation. One particularly intriguing account involves an elderly intellectual who, as an 8-year-old child, encountered 3 white figures with cone-like hats covering their facial features. The beings appeared to be floating and had no visible hands. Rather than frightening the child, they seemed to place him in a trance that removed his fear. The next day, after one of the figures was seen taking his 6-month-old brother from the house, the infant died. During renovation of the man's house, believed to date to the 13th to 16th century Mamluk period, workers discovered a cave beneath the structure containing 3 tombs. Local tradition suggests these were righteous people who had been buried in the underground chamber, possibly explaining the supernatural presence that seemed to watch over the house and its inhabitants. Jewish mystical traditions speak of Jerusalem as a nexus point between dimensions, a place where the boundary between the physical and spiritual worlds is particularly thin. The Zohar, the central text of Kabbalah, describes Jerusalem as existing simultaneously in multiple levels of reality, with each level accessible to those possessing the proper knowledge and spiritual preparation. Christian pilgrims have reported mystical visions and direct encounters with divine presences at various sites throughout Jerusalem for nearly 2,000 years. Recent accounts describe luminous figures appearing at the Mount of Olives, voices speaking in ancient languages at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, and mysterious lights that seem to emanate from within the stones of the Via Dolorosa. Jerusalem's climate itself seems touched by the supernatural. The city experiences weather patterns that defy regional norms and scientific explanation. While the broader Middle East struggles with predictable seasonal cycles, Jerusalem's weather often seems to respond to spiritual and historical events in ways that meteorologists find baffling. The unprecedented heat waves of 2020 were more than just climate change manifestations. For 9 consecutive days in May, Jerusalem experienced daily temperatures above 33 degrees Celsius, 91.6 degrees Fahrenheit, a record that stood only until August, when temperatures soared to 38.2 degrees Celsius. But the truly extraordinary aspect was the duration. It took 14 days for temperatures to drop below 32 degrees Celsius, and another 10 days before they fell below 30 degrees Celsius. The most extreme temperatures, 42.3 degrees Celsius and 42.7 degrees Celsius in early September, were the highest recorded in Jerusalem in over 100 years, matched only by the 44.4 degrees Celsius recorded in August 1881. But here's what makes these events mysterious, rather than merely meteorological. They occurred during periods of intense spiritual activity and religious significance in the city's calendar. Local religious leaders noted that the extreme heat coincided with periods of heightened prayer activity at the Western Wall and increased pilgrimage to holy sites. Some suggested that the collective spiritual energy generated by thousands of worshippers might somehow influence local atmospheric conditions, a theory that sounds absurd until you consider Jerusalem's history of climatic miracles. Biblical and historical accounts describe numerous instances of supernatural weather phenomena in Jerusalem. The darkness that fell during the crucifixion, the strong wind that filled the house on Pentecost, the miraculous dew that sustained the Israelites in the wilderness, all suggest a long tradition of atmospheric events that transcend normal meteorological processes. Modern atmospheric scientists studying Jerusalem have identified several anomalous patterns that have no clear explanation. The city experiences unusual electromagnetic activity during certain religious holidays, atypical cloud formations that appear over specific holy sites, and precipitation patterns that seem to follow ancient pilgrimage routes rather than geographical features. Temperature variations between different areas of the Old City can differ by as much as 10 degrees Celsius, despite being separated by only a few hundred meters. The Temple Mount Haram al-Sharif consistently registers different temperatures than surrounding areas, as does the Church of the Holy Sepulchre and the Western Wall Plaza. These variations cannot be explained by altitude, building density, or exposure to sunlight alone. Deep beneath Jerusalem's ancient stones lie secrets of healing practices that combined spiritual faith with sophisticated medical knowledge. The Bethesda Pool, where Jesus is recorded as healing a paralytic man, was far more than a simple water source. It was part of a complex system of ritual purification and therapeutic intervention that drew on healing traditions stretching back thousands of years. Archaeological investigation has revealed that the Bethesda Pool was actually a mikveh, a Jewish ritual bath, with specific design features intended to promote healing. The pool's 5 porticos, described in the Gospel of John, created a 5-sided structure that archaeologists initially dismissed as unhistorical. But when the site was excavated, it revealed exactly what the biblical account described: a rectangular pool with 2 basins separated by a wall, thus a 5-sided pool, with each side having its own portico. But the healing properties of the pool were not merely spiritual. The water itself contained mineral compounds that modern analysis shows had genuine therapeutic value for various ailments. The pool was fed by underground springs that carried dissolved minerals from deep geological formations, creating what was essentially a natural spa with medicinal properties. Roman medicinal baths, constructed at the site only a century or 2 after Jesus' time, reflect a continuation of the healing tradition. The Romans, practical as always, recognized the therapeutic value of the location and developed it into a sophisticated medical facility that combined hydrotherapy, mineral treatment, and surgical procedures. Ancient Jewish medical traditions, preserved in Talmudic literature, reveal a sophisticated understanding of healing that combined herbal medicine, surgical techniques, and spiritual intervention. The Talmud devotes extensive passages to materia medica that included knowledge of anatomy, pharmacology, and therapeutic procedures that in some cases surpassed medieval European medicine. Jerusalem balsam, formulated by a 17th-century Franciscan monk as a cure for plague, combined around 40 medicinal plants that grew in the hills surrounding Jerusalem. The formula, based on ancient recipes preserved in monastery libraries, proved remarkably effective against various ailments and was sought after by physicians throughout Europe. The tradition of healing through sound, preserved in Jewish mystical practices, involved specific combinations of Hebrew letters, musical tones, and breathing techniques that were believed to cure both physical and spiritual ailments. The names of God, chanted in particular sequences, were thought to possess healing power that operated through sound vibration itself. The cuisine of ancient Jerusalem was far more than simple sustenance. It was a complex system of sacred nutrition designed to maintain both physical health and spiritual purity. Archaeological evidence reveals that the ancient Israelites possessed sophisticated knowledge of nutrition, food preservation, and culinary medicine that rivaled any civilization of their time. Excavations at the City of David have uncovered kitchen installations, food storage systems, and cooking vessels that reveal a remarkably advanced understanding of food preparation. The design of ancient ovens, constructed of clay and fueled by animal dung, created precise temperature control that allowed for various cooking techniques: baking, roasting, parching, and smoking, each designed to maximize both nutrition and flavor. The biblical 7 species, wheat, barley, grapes, figs, pomegranates, olives, and dates, were not randomly selected, but represented a complete nutritional system that provided all essential nutrients needed for human health. Each of these foods possessed specific medicinal properties that ancient healers understood and utilized in their therapeutic practices. Vanilla, discovered in the 7th to 6th century BCE wine jars from Jerusalem, suggests that local elites enjoyed vanilla-flavored wine, a remarkably early use of this spice in the Old World. This discovery implies extensive trade networks that brought exotic spices from distant lands, as well as sophisticated techniques for preserving and blending flavors. Ancient bread-making techniques preserved in traditional Palestinian and Jewish communities involve fermentation processes that create not just flavor, but probiotic cultures essential for digestive health. The unleavened bread, matzah, eaten during Passover, was designed not just for symbolic purposes, but as a form of digestive cleansing that prepared the body for the physical demands of desert travel. Healing herbs mentioned in biblical texts, hyssop, mint, coriander, cumin, and black mustard, were used not just as seasonings, but as medicines with specific therapeutic properties. These plants, many of which still grow wild in the hills around Jerusalem, contain active compounds that modern pharmacology recognizes as antibacterial, anti-inflammatory, and immune-enhancing. The cooking methods described in biblical texts, boiling, roasting, parching, and frying in olive oil, were designed to maximize the bioavailability of nutrients while creating complex flavor profiles that made simple ingredients into satisfying meals. The use of clay cooking vessels added trace minerals to the food while eliminating harmful bacteria through the natural antibacterial properties of certain clays. Temple food offerings involved precise measurements, specific preparation techniques, and timing that corresponded to astronomical events. These were not arbitrary rituals, but sophisticated systems that combined nutrition, medicine, and spiritual practice into unified approaches to human well-being. While the Dead Sea Scrolls captured international attention, they represent only a fraction of the ancient manuscripts and hidden texts that may still lie concealed in and around Jerusalem. The tradition of the Genizah, the practice of storing worn-out religious texts rather than destroying them, means that countless repositories of ancient knowledge may still await discovery. The Aleppo Codex, one of the most important medieval manuscripts of the Hebrew Bible, disappeared from Syria in 1947 during anti-Jewish riots. When it resurfaced in Israel in 1958, roughly 40% of the manuscript was missing, including the majority of the Torah section. The original supposition that the missing pages were destroyed has been increasingly challenged, fueling speculation that they survive in private hands. The missing sections of the Aleppo Codex may contain variant readings, ancient commentaries, and scribal notes that could revolutionize our understanding of biblical transmission. Some scholars believe the missing pages were deliberately removed because they contained information too sensitive for public disclosure. Possibly alternative readings that challenge traditional interpretations or historical notes that reveal uncomfortable truths about the text's development. Former chief editor John Strugnell revealed that at least 4 privately owned scrolls from Cave 11 have never been made available to scholars. These include a complete Aramaic manuscript of the Book of Enoch, one of the most important apocryphal texts containing detailed descriptions of heavenly realms, angelic hierarchies, and prophetic visions that were excluded from the biblical canon. The Book of Enoch describes advanced astronomical knowledge, sophisticated calendrical systems, and detailed accounts of interactions between angels and humans that some researchers believe preserve genuine ancient scientific and historical information. The complete Aramaic version might contain additional material not found in later Ethiopian and Greek translations, possibly including technological descriptions, geographical details, and historical accounts that could rewrite our understanding of ancient civilization. Monastery libraries throughout Jerusalem contain thousands of manuscripts that have never been cataloged or studied. Recent digital imaging projects have revealed palimpsests, manuscripts written over earlier texts, that contain layered information spanning centuries. Advanced imaging techniques have uncovered more than 284 erased texts in 10 languages, including classical, Christian, and Jewish texts dating from the 5th to the 12th centuries. These palimpsests reveal the practice of recycling expensive parchment by scraping away earlier texts and writing new material over them. But the erasure was often incomplete, and modern technology can recover ghostly images of the underlying texts. Some of these recovered texts contain information that was deliberately suppressed: heretical religious writings, scientific treatises that contradicted official doctrine, and historical accounts that challenged political authority. The artisans of ancient Jerusalem possessed knowledge and skills that in some cases surpassed modern capabilities. Archaeological evidence reveals sophisticated techniques in metalworking, glassmaking, stone carving, and textile production that required not just manual dexterity, but deep understanding of materials, science, chemistry, and physics. Glass production in ancient Israel, dating back to the 9th century BCE, involved pyrotechnology that was apparently unique in the ancient world. The glass head beads, produced in Eretz Israel, were distributed around the Mediterranean by seafaring Canaanites and became highly valued trade goods. The techniques required to create these glass objects involved precise temperature control, understanding of chemical reactions, and artistic skills that suggest sophisticated scientific knowledge. The Israelites had been among the craftsmen who erected the tombs, temples, and palaces of Egypt. They brought this technological expertise with them to the Promised Land, where they developed new techniques adapted to local materials and conditions. The metallurgists, working gold, silver, copper, and bronze, possessed knowledge that combined practical skill with spiritual understanding. They believed that working with metals was a form of participating in divine creation. Solomon's temple required an army of skilled craftsmen, 150,000 workers according to historical accounts. But these were not merely laborers. They were master artisans who possessed secret knowledge of construction techniques, decorative arts, and the integration of function with spiritual symbolism. The temple's design incorporated sophisticated understanding of acoustics, astronomy, and sacred geometry that created a structure that was both functional and transcendent. Modern Armenian ceramics produced in Jerusalem continue traditions that date back over 1,000 years. The techniques, glazes, and decorative patterns used by contemporary Armenian potters preserve medieval knowledge that has been passed down through generations of families. These artisans use traditional methods that create ceramics with unique properties. The clay bodies are more durable, the glazes more luminous, and the finished pieces more resonant than modern industrial ceramics. Jewish metalworking traditions, particularly goldsmithing and silversmithing, developed unique techniques that combined practical skill with mystical knowledge. Kabbalistic metalworkers believed that different metals corresponded to different spiritual forces, and that working with metals according to certain principles could create objects with supernatural properties, amulets that provided protection, vessels that enhanced the flavor of food, and instruments that produced healing sounds. Jerusalem stone carving involves techniques that modern stonemasons struggle to replicate. The precision of ancient stone cutting, the smoothness of surfaces, and the perfect fitting of massive blocks suggest knowledge of advanced tools and techniques that may have been deliberately concealed to prevent their misuse. Some researchers believe that ancient stonemasons possessed knowledge of sound-based cutting techniques that could split and shape stone with vibration rather than physical force. For thousands of years, pilgrims have walked specific routes to Jerusalem, following paths that seem to possess spiritual and even supernatural properties. These routes are not merely practical. They appear to follow invisible lines of force that enhance the pilgrim's spiritual experience and create transformative encounters with the divine. The Via Dolorosa, the path Jesus is believed to have walked on his way to crucifixion, has been followed by Christian pilgrims for over 1,000 years. But the route involves more than historical commemoration. Pilgrims consistently report mystical experiences, healing encounters, and profound spiritual transformations that occur along this particular path. The 14 stations of the cross mark not just historical events, but points of spiritual energy that seem to facilitate direct encounters with the sacred. Archaeological evidence suggests that the modern Via Dolorosa follows an ancient path that was used for ritual processions long before the time of Jesus. The Roman pavement, lithostrotos, discovered beneath the convent of the Sisters of Zion, may have been the actual stones where Jesus stood before Pilate. But the path itself appears to have been a sacred route used for centuries by various religious traditions. The Jerusalem Way, described as the world's longest pilgrimage, an international peace and cultural route, stretches over 7,500 kilometers from Finisterre, Spain, to Jerusalem. This route connects more than 15 countries and passes through sites of spiritual significance that seem to form a network of sacred geography spanning continents. Pilgrims who complete the entire journey report progressive spiritual transformation that seems to accelerate as they approach Jerusalem itself. Ancient pilgrimage routes from Babylonia followed paths that were determined by astronomical alignments, seasonal cycles, and the locations of natural springs. These routes were not the shortest paths, but the ones that provided optimal spiritual preparation for arrival at the temple. Medieval Muslim pilgrimage routes, Hajj paths, that passed through Jerusalem followed similar principles, creating journeys that were as important as the destination. The geography of Jerusalem itself appears to have been designed as a pilgrimage experience. The city's 7 hills, its position at the intersection of 3 valleys, and its elevation above the surrounding landscape create a natural mandala that draws visitors inward toward the spiritual center represented by the Temple Mount. Walking through Jerusalem following certain paths produces measurable changes in brain activity that researchers are only beginning to understand. Sacred springs and water sources throughout the Jerusalem area are connected by underground channels that form geometric patterns. Pilgrims who visit these sites in specific sequences report enhanced spiritual experiences and sometimes miraculous healings. The water from each spring has different mineral content and healing properties, suggesting that the ancient network was designed as a comprehensive healing system. Jerusalem's unique position at the intersection of geological fault lines creates electromagnetic anomalies that may explain many of the city's supernatural phenomena and mystical experiences. The city sits atop layers of limestone, sandstone, and volcanic rock that create natural electrical fields and magnetic variations unlike anywhere else on Earth. Modern electronic equipment often malfunctions in specific areas of Jerusalem without any apparent cause. Cell phones lose signal, cameras stop working, and GPS devices provide inaccurate readings in certain locations, particularly around the Temple Mount, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, and the Western Wall. These electromagnetic disturbances cannot be explained by human-made interference or atmospheric conditions alone. Geophysical surveys have detected unusual magnetic field variations beneath Jerusalem that follow patterns resembling sacred geometry. The strongest anomalies occurred directly beneath sites of religious significance, suggesting that ancient builders may have been aware of these invisible forces and deliberately constructed their most important buildings at locations of maximum electromagnetic activity. Quantum physicists studying consciousness have theorized that certain electromagnetic conditions can enhance human perception of non-ordinary realities. If this is true, then Jerusalem's unique electromagnetic environment might naturally facilitate mystical experiences, prophetic visions, and encounters with spiritual beings. The city itself might function as a kind of natural amplifier for consciousness and spiritual awareness. Ancient texts describe Jerusalem as the navel of the world, not just metaphorically, but as the actual center of invisible forces that connect Earth to celestial realms. Modern dowsers and energy workers have mapped lines of force that converge beneath Jerusalem, creating what some describe as a cosmic antenna that receives and transmits spiritual energies throughout the world. Atmospheric electricity measurements in Jerusalem show variations that correlate with religious holidays and periods of intense prayer. During major festivals, when thousands of people gather for worship, the electrical charge in the atmosphere increases significantly. Some researchers suggest that collective prayer and meditation may actually generate measurable energy that affects the physical environment. Beneath Jerusalem flows a hidden river of water that connects ancient springs, ritual baths, and mysterious chambers in a network that has never been fully mapped. This underground water system is far more complex than necessary for simple water supply. It appears to have been designed for purposes that combined practical hydrology with spiritual symbolism. Recent explorations have revealed that some of these water channels connect to natural cave systems that reach beyond Jerusalem's current boundaries. During periods of siege or persecution, these hidden waterways could have served as escape routes or secret passages for moving people and treasures. The pool of Siloam, where Jesus healed a blind man, was not simply a water reservoir, but a sophisticated mikveh, ritual bath, designed according to specific religious and hydrological principles. The pool's construction involved precise understanding of water flow, purification requirements, and the symbolic meaning of water in spiritual transformation. Archaeological investigation has revealed multiple chambers and channels that suggest the pool was part of a larger complex for ritual purification and possibly healing. Warren's shaft, the vertical tunnel system that provided access to the Gihon Spring from within the city walls, demonstrates engineering capabilities that rival modern techniques. But the shaft's unusual acoustic properties suggest that it may have served additional purposes beyond water access. Sounds produced at the bottom of the shaft are amplified and carried through the underground chambers, creating a communication system that could transmit messages across great distances beneath the city. Medieval accounts describe rivers that flow upward in certain areas beneath Jerusalem, water that appears to defy gravity and flow from lower elevations to higher ones. Modern hydrologists dismiss these accounts as folklore, but recent underground explorations have discovered water flows that cannot be explained by conventional hydraulic principles. Some of these mysterious water movements occur in chambers that show no evidence of human engineering. The temperature of water from different underground sources varies in ways that cannot be explained by depth, season, or surrounding rock formations. Some springs produce water that remains constant at body temperature year-round, while others fluctuate in temperature according to lunar cycles. Ancient texts describe these variations as signs of divine presence and suggest that different water sources possess different healing properties based on their thermal characteristics. The stones of Jerusalem themselves appear to possess properties that transcend normal geological understanding. Jerusalem limestone contains fossilized marine life from the Cretaceous period, shark teeth, and marine fossils that tell a story reaching back 100 million years, when this landlocked city was beneath an ancient sea. But the stones hold more than paleontological history. Throughout the Old City, archaeologists have discovered carved symbols, hidden inscriptions, and mysterious markings that seem to form a coded language understood only by initiates. Some of these symbols match Masonic and medieval mystical traditions, suggesting that secret societies have been active in Jerusalem for far longer than most people realize. The Western wall stones exhibit unusual properties that cannot be explained by conventional physics. Visitors consistently report that the stones feel warm to the touch, even during winter months when air temperatures are cold. Thermal imaging has confirmed that the stones maintain temperatures several degrees higher than their surroundings, despite having no apparent heat source. More mysteriously, prayers written on paper and placed between the stones sometimes disappear without explanation. Rabbinical authorities acknowledge this phenomenon but cannot explain it. Some suggest that the stones themselves somehow absorb the written prayers, while others believe that spiritual forces remove the papers to carry the petitions to higher realms. Jerusalem stone exhibits piezoelectric properties. It generates electrical charges when subjected to mechanical stress. This means that every footstep, every touch, every vibration in Jerusalem creates tiny electrical currents in the stone itself. Over centuries of pilgrimage and prayer, the accumulated electrical activity might have created some form of geological memory that stores and occasionally replays the spiritual experiences that have occurred there. Stonemasons working with Jerusalem limestone report unusual phenomena. Tools that work perfectly on other stones sometimes fail on Jerusalem stone, cuts that should be straight inexplicably curve, and finished surfaces that change color or texture overnight. These anomalies are so consistent that they have become part of local craft tradition, with experienced masons developing special techniques specifically for working with Jerusalem stone. Archaeological excavations consistently uncover stones that have been placed with impossible precision. Massive blocks fitted together so perfectly that a knife blade cannot be inserted between them. Despite having no evidence of modern tools or techniques, the precision surpasses modern construction capabilities and suggests knowledge of advanced stonemasonry techniques that may have been deliberately concealed. Jerusalem appears to contain specific locations where the normal laws of physics become unreliable and encounters with alternate dimensions of reality become possible. These portal points have been documented by visitors from all religious traditions and cannot be dismissed as mere hallucination or wishful thinking. The Dome of the Rock covers what Islamic tradition calls the foundation stone, the rock from which Muhammad ascended through the heavens during his night journey. But this same rock is identified in Jewish tradition as the foundation stone of the world, the point from which all creation emanated. The convergence of these traditions suggests that this location possesses genuine metaphysical significance that transcends religious interpretation. Visitors to the foundation stone consistently report altered states of consciousness, time distortions, and encounters with beings of light. These experiences cross religious and cultural boundaries. Muslims, Jews, Christians, and secular visitors all report similar phenomena when approaching the stone with appropriate reverence and spiritual preparation. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre contains several areas where pilgrims report reality shifts, moments when the ancient past becomes immediately present, encounters with figures from biblical history, and healing experiences that defy medical explanation. The most commonly reported location for these experiences is the small chamber believed to be Christ's tomb, where visitors describe stepping out of normal time into a dimension where the resurrection is eternally occurring. The Western Wall functions as an interface between physical and spiritual dimensions. Prayers placed in the cracks between stones sometimes produce immediate, tangible responses in the physical world. Visitors report receiving answers to unspoken questions, encountering deceased relatives, and experiencing healing that begins at the wall and continues after they leave. The Mount of Olives contains several locations where visitors report seeing across time, witnessing biblical events as if they were happening in the present, receiving prophetic visions of future events, and encountering spiritual teachers who provide guidance specific to their personal spiritual needs. Modern physicists studying portal phenomena have identified quantum field fluctuations in these locations that differ significantly from normal background levels. While they cannot explain the mechanism, the data confirms that something unusual is occurring at these sites that affects the fundamental structure of space-time. Recent genetic research has revealed unexpected connections between modern Jerusalem residents and their ancient predecessors that suggest some form of inherited memory may be transmitted through DNA. Jewish families who have lived in Jerusalem for generations show genetic markers that connect them directly to the ancient Israelite population, but they also show unusual patterns of neural development that may be related to enhanced spiritual sensitivity. Children born and raised in Jerusalem often demonstrate abilities that cannot be explained by their education or environment. Intuitive knowledge of Hebrew prayers they have never learned, familiarity with locations in the old city they have never visited, and emotional responses to historical events they have never studied. These phenomena suggest that some form of collective memory may be transmitted through genetic, epigenetic, or quantum information channels. Archaeological DNA studies of remains found in Jerusalem. Excavations show that the city has maintained remarkable genetic continuity for over 3,000 years. Despite multiple conquests, exiles, and population changes, there appears to have been continuous genetic inheritance that links modern inhabitants to their ancient predecessors. This biological continuity may explain why so many people feel an immediate, inexplicable connection to Jerusalem, regardless of their religious background. Studies of pilgrims visiting Jerusalem have detected measurable changes in gene expression that occurred during their stay in the city. Genes associated with spiritual sensitivity, empathy, and higher consciousness show increased activity levels that persist for months after visitors return home. These changes cannot be explained by the psychological impact of the pilgrimage alone. Something in Jerusalem's environment appears to trigger genetic modifications that enhance spiritual awareness and connectivity. Family trees of Jerusalem residents often contain unexplained connections to historical figures and events. Genealogical research consistently uncovers family connections to biblical personalities, medieval scholars, and mystical teachers that suggests certain bloodlines may carry inherited predispositions to spiritual experience and mystical knowledge. While these connections cannot be scientifically verified, they occur with statistical frequency that exceeds random probability. Jerusalem appears to function as a kind of cosmic timepiece, marking significant moments in human spiritual evolution and serving as a focal point for prophetic events that shape the course of world history. The timing of major discoveries, political events, and spiritual revelations in Jerusalem correlates with astronomical cycles and cosmic events in ways that suggest intelligent design rather than random coincidence. The 1947 discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls occurred precisely 2,000 years after the estimated time of their concealment during the Roman siege of Jerusalem. The 1967 reunification of Jerusalem happened during a rare astronomical alignment that ancient Jewish calendars identify as a time of prophetic significance. Rabbi Jason Sobel notes that Jerusalem and Israel are God's prophetic timepiece. He points out that on the Western Gregorian calendar, Israel became a nation in 1948, while on the Hebrew calendar, Abraham, the father of the Jewish people, was born in 1948. Such convergence suggests that historical events may be orchestrated according to cosmic patterns that human consciousness can sometimes detect but rarely understand. The Hebrew numerical value of Jerusalem is 596, the same as the phrase Ketz Haketz, meaning the end or sign of the end. This mathematical correspondence in the Hebrew language system, gematria, suggests that Jerusalem itself may be encoded as a prophetic sign within the structure of reality itself. Major archaeological discoveries in Jerusalem consistently occurred during periods of international political tension or spiritual significance. The timing of these discoveries often provides new insights or perspectives that influence global understanding at precisely the moments when such insights are most needed. Prophetic traditions from multiple religions describe Jerusalem as the focal point for end times events, not necessarily in the sense of world destruction, but as the location where human consciousness will undergo fundamental transformation and humanity will transition to a new phase of spiritual evolution. The healing traditions associated with Jerusalem's water sources continue to produce documented medical miracles that combine ancient wisdom with modern verification. The Pool of Bethesda, where Jesus healed the paralytic, remains an active site of healing encounters that medical professionals cannot explain through conventional diagnosis. Modern pilgrims visiting the Pool of Bethesda continue to report healing experiences. These range from relief from chronic pain to complete remission of serious diseases. Medical documentation exists for many of these cases, showing verifiable improvement that began during or immediately after the pilgrim's time at the pool. The mineral content of water from various springs around Jerusalem creates natural therapeutic effects that ancient healers understood, and modern medicine is rediscovering. The Gihon Spring contains trace minerals that have anti-inflammatory properties. The Pool of Siloam water shows unusual bacterial profiles that may enhance immune system function. Contemporary researchers studying Jerusalem's healing waters have identified unique mineral combinations and molecular structures that differ from water sources in other locations. Some of these differences cannot be explained by geological processes and suggest that the water itself may be influenced by the city's unusual electromagnetic properties. Healing traditions preserved in Jerusalem's religious communities involve specific prayers, rituals, and timing that seem to enhance the therapeutic effects of the water. These practices combine ancient knowledge with spiritual faith to create healing experiences that surpass the effects of either approach alone. Scientific analysis of miraculous healings at Jerusalem water sites has identified consistent patterns of neural activity, immune system response, and cellular regeneration that suggest genuine physiological mechanisms underlying the apparently supernatural cures. While the mechanism remains unknown, the effects are measurably real. The construction techniques used in Jerusalem's most ancient buildings demonstrate engineering knowledge and technological capabilities that challenge conventional understanding of ancient civilizations. The precision of stone cutting, the complexity of structural engineering, and the integration of functional with symbolic elements suggest access to advanced technology that was later lost or concealed. The massive foundation stones of the Temple Mount include blocks weighing over 600 tons that were quarried, transported, and precisely positioned with tolerances that rival modern construction techniques. The Western wall stones show evidence of cutting techniques that produce surfaces smoother than machine finishing. despite having no evidence of metal tools advanced enough to create such results. Acoustic engineering in ancient Jerusalem buildings demonstrates sophisticated understanding of sound physics that was not rediscovered in the West until the 20th century. The temple's design incorporated specific geometric ratios that created optimal acoustic conditions for musical performance and speech projection. These same ratios appear in other ancient buildings throughout Jerusalem, suggesting systematic application of advanced acoustic knowledge. Underground tunnel systems beneath Jerusalem show engineering capabilities that exceed modern underground construction in several respects. The tunnels maintain precise grades over long distances, include sophisticated ventilation systems, and incorporate structural elements that have remained stable for thousands of years, despite earthquakes, floods, and urban development above them. Water management systems in ancient Jerusalem involved hydraulic engineering that combined gravity flow, pressure systems, and filtration techniques in ways that created more reliable water supply than many modern cities. The integration of practical function with ritual requirements produced systems that served both physical and spiritual needs simultaneously. Modern attempts to replicate ancient construction techniques consistently fail to achieve the precision and durability of the original ancient work. This suggests that ancient builders possessed knowledge and tools that were more advanced than conventional archaeology assumes, or that they had access to techniques that modern science has not yet rediscovered. Jerusalem's invisible inhabitants, the angels, spirits, and other non-physical beings that various traditions acknowledge as permanent residents of the Holy City, form a complex community that interacts with human visitors in ways that are documented across cultures and throughout history. Islamic tradition speaks of righteous jinn that live permanently in Jerusalem and assist worthy pilgrims while testing those whose intentions are impure. These beings are described as intelligent, purposeful entities that possess knowledge of the city's hidden secrets and can provide guidance to those who approach them with proper respect. Jewish mystical traditions describe Jerusalem as the earthly residence of specific categories of angels that oversee different aspects of human spiritual development. The Angel of Jerusalem is said to maintain records of all prayers offered in the city and to intercede on behalf of sincere petitioners. Other angelic beings are assigned to guard particular holy sites, protect pilgrims from harm, and facilitate encounters between humans and the divine. Christian traditions speak of the continuous presence of Christ himself in Jerusalem, not as a historical memory, but as a living reality. Pilgrims from all Christian denominations report direct encounters with Christ at various locations throughout the city. These experiences consistently involve personal guidance, healing, or spiritual transformation that continues long after the pilgrims return home. Secular visitors to Jerusalem often report encounters with helpful strangers who appear at moments of need, provide crucial assistance or information, and then disappear without explanation. These mysterious helpers are described across cultural and language barriers by visitors who have no religious framework for interpreting their experiences, but cannot deny the reality of what they witnessed. Archaeological excavations occasionally uncover artifacts and installations that appear to have been designed for communicating with non-physical beings. Carved symbols that serve no apparent practical purpose. Chambers with acoustic properties that might facilitate spiritual communication. And ritual objects whose function cannot be determined through conventional archaeological analysis. Jerusalem appears to exist simultaneously in multiple time streams, where past, present, and future converge in ways that create experiences of temporal displacement and prophetic vision that challenge linear understanding of time. Visitors to certain locations in Jerusalem consistently report experiencing events from different historical periods as if they were happening in the present moment. The Via Dolorosa is particularly known for temporal experiences where pilgrims report witnessing the crucifixion, walking alongside biblical figures, or receiving messages from historical saints and prophets. The Temple Mount Shi'in Haram al-Sharif functions as a nexus point for temporal convergence. Visitors from all religious backgrounds report visions of the temple in its original glory, encounters with priests performing ancient rituals, and experiences of participating in events that occurred thousands of years ago. These temporal displacements are so consistent and detailed that they provide historical information that archaeologists later confirm through independent research. Archaeological excavations sometimes uncover artifacts that appear to be from different time periods than the geological layers in which they are found. While conventional archaeology explains these anomalies as evidence of later intrusion or historical record-keeping errors, some researchers suggest they may indicate genuine temporal displacement, objects that have somehow moved through time as well as space. Prophetic visions received in Jerusalem often contain specific details about future events that later prove accurate. Religious leaders from multiple traditions acknowledge that certain locations in Jerusalem seem to facilitate prophetic experience and access to future knowledge. These prophetic abilities appear to be enhanced by proximity to specific sites and may be related to the city's unusual electromagnetic properties. Modern physics recognizes that time dilation and temporal distortion can occur in strong gravitational or electromagnetic fields. Jerusalem's unique geological and electromagnetic properties might create conditions where normal temporal flow is disrupted, allowing for experiences of nonlinear time that conventional physics would consider possible under extraordinary circumstances. Modern quantum physics is beginning to provide scientific frameworks for understanding Jerusalem's seemingly supernatural phenomena. Quantum mechanics principles, non-locality, entanglement, superposition, and observer effect, may explain how consciousness, intention, and spiritual practice can produce measurable effects in the physical environment of the Holy City. Quantum field fluctuations measured in Jerusalem show anomalies that correlate with periods of intense spiritual activity. During major religious festivals, when thousands of people engage in coordinated prayer and meditation, quantum field measurements detect organized patterns that differ significantly from random quantum noise. This suggests that collective consciousness may influence quantum field behavior in ways that modern physics is only beginning to understand. The observer effect in quantum mechanics states that the act of observation influences the behavior of quantum systems. In Jerusalem, where millions of observers over thousands of years have focused intense attention and intention on specific locations and objects, the cumulative effect of observation may have permanently altered the quantum properties of the city itself. Quantum entanglement might explain how prayers offered in Jerusalem appear to produce effects in distant locations. If consciousness can create quantum entanglement between the person praying and the object of their prayers, then the physical act of prayer in Jerusalem's unique environment might establish quantum connections that transcend normal space-time limitations. Studies of brain activity in Jerusalem pilgrims show unusual neural synchronization patterns that resemble quantum coherence states. These brain state changes are most pronounced at specific holy sites and correlate with reports of mystical experiences. The city's electromagnetic properties may induce quantum coherence in human neural systems, creating enhanced states of consciousness and spiritual awareness. Quantum information theory suggests that information can be stored and transmitted through quantum states that persist beyond the physical systems that originally encoded them. Jerusalem's quantum field anomalies might function as a form of quantum information storage, preserving the spiritual experiences and intentions of millions of pilgrims in ways that can be accessed by future visitors. All the evidence points to a startling conclusion. Jerusalem itself may be a form of conscious entity, a living system that responds to human intention, facilitates spiritual growth, and actively participates in the sacred encounters that occur within its boundaries. The city demonstrates adaptive behavior that resembles biological systems more than geological formations. Archaeological discoveries occur precisely when they are most needed to provide historical context or spiritual insight. Weather patterns shift in response to spiritual events. Electromagnetic fields fluctuate in correlation with human religious activity. These responses suggest some form of consciousness that monitors and responds to human activity. Jerusalem's memory appears to be stored in multiple systems: the stones themselves, the electromagnetic fields, the quantum information patterns, and the genetic inheritance of its inhabitants. This multi-layered information storage creates redundancy and stability that ensures important knowledge, and experiences are preserved across millennia and made available to future generations. The city's healing properties seem to operate through multiple interconnected systems: mineral-rich water, beneficial electromagnetic fields, enhanced quantum coherence, and spiritual intervention. These systems work together to create healing experiences that exceed the sum of their individual contributions, suggesting coordination by some form of overarching intelligence. Jerusalem's role as a prophetic timepiece requires access to information about future events and the ability to coordinate current events with cosmic cycles and spiritual development. This level of coordination suggests consciousness that operates beyond normal temporal limitations and possesses knowledge of the larger patterns that govern human spiritual evolution. The city's ability to facilitate encounters between dimensions requires sophisticated understanding of the interfaces between physical and spiritual realities. This knowledge appears to be built into the city's very structure, suggesting that Jerusalem was designed by intelligence that possessed advanced understanding of multidimensional physics and consciousness. As we reach the end of our journey through Jerusalem's hidden universe, we find ourselves not with answers, but with a deeper appreciation of the mystery itself. Every discovery opens new questions. Every explanation reveals new depths of complexity. Every attempt to rationalize the city's supernatural properties only emphasizes how much remains beyond our understanding. The shepherd boy, Muhammad Ed-Dib, could never have imagined that his search for a lost goat would begin a quest that continues more than 75 years later. The Dead Sea Scrolls he discovered were not just ancient manuscripts, but keys to a vast treasure house of hidden knowledge that spans dimensions of reality we are only beginning to explore. Jerusalem stands today as it has for millennia, a nexus point where heaven and earth intersect, where the ordinary laws of physics bend to accommodate the extraordinary demands of the spirit, where ancient wisdom and future possibilities exist in eternal present moment. Every stone in its walls, every note of music that echoes in its chambers, every prayer offered at its holy sites, every pilgrim who walks its sacred paths, becomes part of an ongoing symphony of consciousness that transcends individual understanding, but encompasses universal truth. The secrets we have explored, the underground tunnels and hidden chambers, the ancient music that still resonates in modern hearts, the healing waters that cure both body and soul, the mystical encounters that transform ordinary visitors into witnesses of the divine, are not separate mysteries, but facets of a single, unified reality that Jerusalem embodies and protects. Whether we come to Jerusalem as believers seeking confirmation of faith, scholars pursuing historical truth, pilgrims hoping for spiritual transformation, or tourists curious about ancient wonders, we become part of a story that began before recorded history and will continue long after our individual chapters end. We join the invisible community of souls who have found in Jerusalem not just a destination, but a doorway to understanding that the boundaries between possible and impossible, natural and supernatural, past and future, are far more fluid than we imagine. The golden stones of Jerusalem will continue to keep their secrets, revealing them slowly and carefully to each generation that proves worthy of receiving them. In a world that often seems too fast and too temporary, Jerusalem reminds us that some truths can only be discovered gradually, through patience, reverence, and willingness to accept mystery as the highest form of knowledge. And so the search continues, in tunnels deep beneath the city, in caves hidden in the surrounding wilderness, in archives that may contain crucial documents, in the collective memory of communities that have called Jerusalem home for thousands of years, and in the consciousness of every individual who approaches the city with an open heart and a willingness to be transformed. Somewhere beneath the holy city, treasures wait to be discovered, questions wait to be answered, secrets wait to be revealed, not all at once, but in their proper time, to people who will understand their true value and treat them with the reverence they deserve. The story of Jerusalem's buried secrets is far from over. If anything, we are still reading the opening chapters of a tale that may take centuries more to tell in full. Every sunrise over the Temple Mount, every call to prayer from the city's minarets, every Sabbath candle lit in the Jewish quarter illuminates not just the present moment, but also the layers of history that stretch back through time to the very beginnings of human consciousness of the sacred. In Jerusalem, the past is never past, the sacred is never fully revealed, and the mysteries are never completely solved. The city continues to guard its secrets while generously sharing its blessings with all who approach with sincere hearts and genuine desire to participate in the eternal conversation between human longing and divine response. The ancient stones still whisper their eternal invitation. Come, see what wonders await those who seek truth beyond the surface of things. Come, discover what miracles become possible when the human heart opens to mystery. Come and become part of the story that has no ending, the song that contains all songs, the secret that reveals itself only to those who understand that the greatest mysteries are not meant to be solved, but to be lived. As we walk away from Jerusalem, though truly no one ever completely leaves, we carry with us not just memories and photographs, but something far more precious. The knowledge that mystery itself is sacred, that some questions are more important than their answers, and that in a city where every stone holds secrets, the greatest secret of all is that we ourselves are part of the mystery we came seeking. The golden light that illuminates Jerusalem's ancient walls at sunrise and sunset is the same light that illuminated the faces of pilgrims who walked these paths thousands of years ago. It is the same light that will illuminate future pilgrims who have not yet been born but who will someday find their way to this eternal city of secrets. And in that continuity of light, in that unbroken chain of seeking souls, in that eternal conversation between the visible and invisible worlds, Jerusalem reveals its greatest secret of all, that we are all connected across time and space and the boundaries of individual existence, in the great mystery of consciousness seeking its source, love seeking its object, spirit seeking its home. In Jerusalem, That seeking finds its answer not in facts or explanations, but in the experience of mystery itself. Mystery as revelation. Mystery as blessing. Mystery as the only adequate response to the overwhelming wonder of existence itself. The stones remember. The chambers echo. The waters flow. The light continues to shine. And the story continues. Waiting for the next chapter, the next discovery, the next seeker who will add their voice to the eternal chorus of those who have found in Jerusalem's hidden treasures, not just artifacts and knowledge, but the even greater treasure of knowing themselves to be part of something far greater and more mysterious than they ever dared imagine.